It now. All right, let me check that this is this looks to be live. Okay, great. All right, so hey, this is Jdawg. I'm here with Van this evening. He is part of our team at GBAMS, part of the crew. And so we're just going to have a little casual chat, wide-ranging discussion on art, pop culture, whatever, and gaming in particular, stuff around that. And I'm going to be playing a little Master of Magic here. So yeah, that's what we're up to. And why don't you introduce yourself, Van? Just say hello. Your first time on stream.
Sure, I'm Van Shannon. I am in Houston, Texas, and my background's in Bitcoin mining, engineering, operations, construction. Um, I'd like to talk about who are you, J-Dog, and what is GBAMF?
GBAMFS, GBAMFs, Gamer Advocacy Org. Basically, by gamers for gamers, and our situation is it's kind of rough in the gaming space, culturally, artistically, in terms of the products we're getting and kind of the what's on offer, what gets made. These days is not it doesn't really meet us where we are. I'll put it that way, and so that's something that's worth addressing, kind of tackling in a creative and critique sense. And consumer wise, there's a lot of there's been some ongoing issues. You've heard like game passes, and there's certain types of games like gotcha games, spelled GACHA, more of an Asian mobile and like a kind of what do you call as like a slot machine type scenario, but with a role play element. So those tend to be a little bit rougher on the wallet. The game pass is not as bad, but it has its own issues as far as not rewarding creatives as well, because you get one ticket and then access to a variety of games. So yeah, there's just a bunch of issues with the game space, practically, artistically, and also we have things like the misrepresentation in the media. Media does not, traditionally not super kind or considerate of gamer interest as a culture, and consumer terms used to be much better, because they'd have gamers actually doing the editorial work, doing the real review work. They're not just hyping something, and that doesn't really happen as much anymore. And and
What's
then
not happening? What's not happening as much anymore?
the well, the culture is still here, right? It's still here, but the industry has kind of moved on. I'll put it that way in almost all senses. At the top level, the AAA level, that is the kind of the consensus feel from a large number of people. A large number of people. So GBAMS is here to represent those interests, represent those views, um, give good attention, throw good attention to the good work, and call out some of the stuff that's not so good with respect to all that. In summary.
So, what was the reason or your motivation originally for starting GBAMFs?
Oh man, that's a great question. Let me take a drink to that. Thank you for that one, Van.
Cheers! I'll join you.
Yeah, the motivation is tackle all that, bring it back to reality in terms of the dialogue and the discussion around as I said, the media doesn't do a good job by gamers. Bring it back to consensus views in the gaming space for many of us.
It sounds like community building and bridging the gap where people don't want to reach across the aisle, as well
The
as
aisle, that's
would
an
you
interesting one. Go ahead.
Would you clarify a little bit more or speak to a little bit more about the gamer pay? And then there was another two great points that you brought up. I'm not a gamer, so I remember gamer pay. I don't remember the other
Game Pass. It's called Game
Game
Pass.
Pass. Game Pass, and you mentioned
Well, Van, just
another.
to be fair to you, you're an old school gamer, right? I mean, you played arcade, you played all that, so you played Dragon's Lair and all that. So, you're still a gamer. You may not be actively involved day to day, but that's because you're building systems that, in some cases, they may enable gaming at some point, right? So that's I just want to clarify there. So, Game Pass is it's like a battle pass, Game Pass, battle pass. It's a one size fits all ticket. It's basically a day pass if you're at a fair, except for video games. Okay, so
Okay.
that's what we're dealing with there. Doesn't really reward the developers very well. That's kind of the issue. Like they're trying to get a higher head count in with these companies. They're trying to get a higher head count, and I'm still setting up the game here, by the way. You could see it, by the way, if you load up on YouTube. I'll give you a link here because you may not see it on the screen right now. But the situation is it does get people in, and let me just check the audio is good here. That looks to be good. Okay, so yeah, it gets people in, but the particular purchases, right, like the actual titles, the developers don't necessarily see a direct return on this. You'll probably want to mute the stream when you get that. So, um, yeah, the it shows shows a statistic. So you're gonna see that someone's playing your game, right? The studio will see that they get a certain amount of participation, gameplay, as far as stats go, but they don't get the same degree of direct reward back from that, and like that's seen to be a disincentive by many of the creatives, because they are expecting to sell a product, right? They are expecting it's still it see it's an, the interesting thing is the evolution of the whole gaming market and delivery process. Okay, um, most is digital now. It's not disc. It's not CD-ROM, that type of disc. It's not any kind of physical hardware or cart. And that's something also that's coming out where like Sony is they're they're trying to get rid of that altogether. Um, that's going to be pretty rough, right? Because what it also has the effect of, which some people may say is the motivation for it, is it gets rid of the secondary market, right? So you can't trade your discs after, you can't sell it, trade it back in, um, and that's good, and it has good and bad effects to that. I think I'm just gonna
Well,
get
well, it
started.
sounds like digitally you're owning nothing. You're basically paying for a service to play a game. And thank you, by the way, for that compliment about reminding me that yes, I have played video games, but currently spend my time generally on other critical infrastructure projects. But yes, I enjoy dabbling in game development as much as playing some old school video games. I think I went through every video game system growing up, from Atari and Television, Activision, Sega, Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Xbox, the
Yeah,
PlayStation.
you played the
Uh,
works, man. You're a gamer. You're a gamer. You're a gamer ascended, right? We don't Gamers don't age out. We level up. Okay, so
It's like the big count. It's man. It's like the Bitcoin community. It's so well. It's so welcoming and made of so many great community members, I guess would be a best. It's just
yeah.
it feels like a big family. I I
that
feel
yeah.
like a lot of people think about Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, which was specifically my arena, um, as it's people who want to just get rich, right? Like that's why you're investing in crypto because you want to get rich.
Sure.
You want the degenerate gains. And not that I'm
It, there,
opposed to I'm not opposed to degenerate games, but I'm also aware of the risks involved. Like I'm a very analytical uh versus gambler. The Bitcoin, I draw parallels between the gaming community because it seems overall, my experience is that it's been positive, and that what people like yourself are doing are trying to move things forward, which I can so much align with on a personal and ethical and spiritual and value level, due to my own convictions about sustainability overall across the board, and just kind of overall providing people with accurate information, right? The truth, and then unbiased simplifications for people to understand who that might not be their arena of expertise.
right.
And like you're on another level when it comes to games. I'm so appreciative to have been brought into the team of commandos at GBAMFS and on board, and really align with the sustainable overall arching, which when we say sustainable, we're looking at every aspect of that, which is the impact to the environment, but also the impact to our the humans, very
Yeah.
much the human aspect, which includes the children and the generations to come.
Mm-hmm.
And where I would feel like we align is that I know that Jeff cares, and I care very deeply about my work. So yeah, man, it's an honor. Thank you too. And like I said, it's been a very welcoming community and a very positive experience getting to know you, and just getting to join the team, man.
Well, yeah, Van. You touched on a lot of great points there. I really appreciate you coming on board and being a teammate on this too, because there's way more to tackle than any one person or even a group of people. It really requires a broad community effort, and to have skilled, knowledgeable people that can come together and kind of give some pointers, help clarify the issues, break down the issues that need to be broken down, and elevate the discussion where it needs to be so that it meets industry standards where they can, where we can actually interface with them. That's all crucial. That's all crucial. And yeah, really good to have you as a teammate, man. It really is. The sustainability is key. That's see you talk about sustainable engineering. As a lifelong IT guy, you have to go through a lot of iterations and designs for business. Like they always want something new, different, different applications, different designs, and the scopes vary, and some things come in, some things go in that. But this is very important as a point to distinguish. Gamers are a culture, right? We're not just a consumer category or a market. And for a 10 a dozen years running something like that, there's been a somewhere between a full court press and a real hard driving effort, okay, at a minimum, to pigeonhole gamers as some kind of purely receptive consumer group, a passive consumer group that just whatever industry comes out with, as the catchphrase, as the sardonic catchphrase has been coined, uh, be excited for slop, then get ready and excited for new slop. And those are your two options. If you dissent from that, in effect, right? If you don't like what the new product is, you have people out there that just more than trash talk, they'll trash your whole person and gamers in general. Oh well, you don't like what X, Y, and Z company is putting out. You have fanboyism and fangirlism, and they're like. There gets to be partisanship in gaming, and everyone understands everyone has their favorites and loyalties and all that, but part of the issue is when it crosses over to actually dragging down the discussion, lowering the discourse, and dragging the whole community, just because someone wants to have their precious perspective on like their particular favorite. That's no bueno. Yeah, that's I'm not down with that, and it's been harm to the community.
Well, and that seems like you're speaking to a larger systemic issue that spans outside of gaming and more
Could
than
be.
likely in almost all sectors of all industries.
Yeah. Honestly, if you look at it, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, that's been true for for movies too. There's in pop culture, that's been. Whew, that's a big longer discussion, but like I mean, you go back to like the 2016 Ghostbuster themed movie that was not in a lot of the Ghost Heads, diehard Ghost Head fans' opinion, wasn't really a Ghostbusters movie. Certainly, it's like a strong parody. It was right up there. The performances were wild. The effects were actually darn good on that. So there's positives there, but was it a Ghostbusters movie? No, it wasn't. In most of the OG's fans' view. And so the media went around and called everyone that didn't like the new slop, as it were, right? They didn't like the direction it took creatively. They decided to turn that into a gender issue. I mean, that was prominent in the casting, but they turn it into a criticism of the fans, to turn it around on the fan base, which to me seems rather presumptuous and like improper as a role for the media. Why are we getting very high-handed editorials from people who in other terms would probably be better regarded as promoters for the product? I mean, if you're really looking at it that way, like how does this distinguish itself from PR, whether it's paid directly, compensated or not? And I get the answer like to myself. I look at it. I looked at it in different ways, and I said it doesn't. These are as the meme goes. These are the same thing. You're looking at the same thing, and I'm like, that's not respectful to organic feedback. It's not respectful to the actual fans, the community.
Well, and what purpose does it serve? What purpose does it serve? Because it gets back to the kind of core issue of what is slop, what is truth, what is truth. There is a like there's the truth, there are facts,
Right.
and then there's not, right? So, and how do we define slop? We can
Those are
dive
big
deep on.
questions. Those are big
Yeah, yeah.
questions. Let me. I want to answer that, but I think before we jump into like qualifying stuff creatively, um, I just like to say that to finish the point on sustainability, and culture, like there is sustainability in design and like hardware, software, technical sustainability, and environmental in the very big picture sense, right? You have many things to consider there. But there's such a thing as cultural sustainability. Okay, there's such a thing as actual like community and culture and passing on knowledge, values, wisdom, whatever, and creatively. Like there's a creative inheritance in any art form or any creative sense, whatever it is. There's many categories of art, and the great ones are preserved over time and celebrated, protected, generations down line. So like that's something that it's bigger than the commercial aspect, and it's bigger than just the present day. And so that's part of our goal, is to actually advocate for the preservation of the art form, the promotion of it, to communities that may not be aware of it, or not, that may have drifted away from it. So you might be more familiar with gaming from a decade or two past. Somebody might be more into mobile games but know nothing about computer games, and vice versa. And also just to pass it on to the next generation who may or may not have familiarity with games as they were, right? So like that's all that's crucial. And if the media isn't doing a good job, if the institutions, which so far they haven't been doing a good job of picking that up, that's our job. That's like the gamers need to step up for ourselves to be our own advocates, our own celebrators of that art and promoters of that art, independent of people's particular position on whether this platform is good or that that creative decision or that that type of product line is good. We need to come together around that, and that's the sustainability that I feel is key, and I think is the biggest incentive to maintain this as an an organized effort versus just having our individually curated collections and stuff. So that's a big part of it. And artistic criticism is to go back to your point. Artistic criticism and getting genuine feedback, organic feedback, and having that conversation among people who are actually devoted followers, fans of the art, creators of the art in some case, that's essential. That's actually the difference between like astroturf in the industry parlance and having a real community. And that's an essential distinction. That's an essential distinction, and that can get very much mixed up and lost in an oversaturated hype and a little bit of a controlled media environment. And we're taking it back. That's how I feel about it.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Define for me or clarify for me astroturf. And I feel like you're jumping off on a great point of look, the media, which I think a lot of people have already come to this conclusion. Why would I watch the news if the media is pretty much promotional propaganda, PR,
Yeah.
disguised as by largely special interests, controlled by special interests,
Yep.
and not truly a voice of the community? And
Yep.
then I feel people like you are really leading the outcry to or stepping up and taking ownership, and you're like it's up to us, which is taking ownership and leadership um, in this movement to see that gaming is preserved as an art and it's sustainable in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And you get back to the core um, integrity with integrity of the art, or of that you want to make great, don't you want to make great art, where it seems like now we've largely gotten to, and this
Mm-hmm.
is just business model again that's probably industry wide,
Mm-hmm.
extractive. How much money can we make? What is the upset? What is
Yep.
the upsell on this? How can we phase out this version and then lock them in on this version?
Pretty
How do
much.
we discontinue this so that we can sell them that? It's XY, it's XYZ.
Yeah, that's the
Whereas,
formula right there. Yeah.
I mean, would you, what are your thoughts on that as, and that's what's,
We're against it. I mean, we're yeah, we want we want to take care, we want to see devs taken care of, man. Like the you if you mix up with the actual creative and technical people in gaming, who are there now, certainly the ones that were there, the earlier ones, a lot of them, they maybe have a little bit of a larger um well, they have a larger perspective, okay, because if they're going back a bit, but their experience is a little different than the ones in there right now, okay, for one thing, and some things are in common, some things changed. The market changed, so you had more rock stars early on, that kind of rose on their own. The ID Software crew, everyone, John Romero, John Carmack, those guys. There's a number of Tim Sweeney, he's the CEO of Epic Games. So there's maybe a little more room for them to grow, and make their companies and showcase their products. It's never easy, right? It's always game development and marketing publishing has always been a challenge. It's really fair to say. But I think there was, suffice it to say, the whole labor picture and market picture has evolved quite considerably over the years. And as gamers, we want our best value. Gamers are famously very thrifty. Some say cheap, but like we're choosy. We're picky. Okay, picky gamers. Picky is fair to say about gamers, and we do see, like, if you do any real analysis of how the rewards are allotted for development work and stuff, it tends to be a lot like more mainstream industry now, certainly, where like there's not, unless you're in the high leadership level, you're not necessarily reaping your greatest benefit, or the most benefit, needless to say. And like, as gamers, you have to, as consumers, you want the best deal, but being this is a little deeper than that, and it's something we care very much about. Many gamers do, to the point where like we're very upset when like bad creative turns are taken, and if we hear of of serious mistreatment in the industry, of devs, like it's something that does catch on and catch our attention. But it's not something everyone is able to follow to the depth that maybe would be best to really address it in any meaningful sense, other than expressing like unhappiness. It's a shame that the studio closed. Oh, I know that that person, or I know, I certainly of them, because they're very prominent in some development, some game. Um, it's kind of, there's a big disconnect, right? I mean, practically speaking, and same thing is true also at the leadership level sometimes, to the actual people making the brew, the games, and everything involved in them, the publishing and all. And you look at that enough, and you look at the products, the outcome, over time, and they've worsened. And I'm saying to myself, this is not just an internal issue. Like the internal issues of these companies, evidently, both in terms of the output, which it's been a little bit dismal in some cases, and our dissatisfaction with them. They're actually like, these are the same, again, the meme. These are the same picture. These are the same thing. Like, they're not doing right by the people working there necessarily in terms of business decisions, or compensation and stuff. I mean, it's not, no, not direct business of ours, so we're not calling anyone out specifically and saying this is that. I am saying the big picture is they don't seem to be handling that internally very well. Obviously, I mean, because we're seeing massive heads rolling bloodbath. Sorry to put it in those terms, but like, this is not right. It's a big period of correction in the industry right now. Very sad for very many people, and a lot of good people, and some who may not have been as creatively inspired or talented, but like a lot of people, they're all getting shown the door, like many people, and that's a leadership failure. I mean, it's hard not to see that as that. And it's also been something gamers have been on the receiving end, right? As customers, we're like, we don't want this product. For many years, like, we've been saying, no, we want something else. We want something that's more blood and guts, or something that's maybe more whimsical in some cases, or just more inspired. And
Something that's better. You're
yeah,
like, I want something better than this.
right,
Okay, I've done this. I played this.
right,
We want something better.
right.
And I feel it also speaks to, again, it sounds like systemic corporate are ruining video games because there's a disconnect between the artistic creativity that developers have, and how many times throughout history have great artists not been fairly compensated. The two people that just come to my mind are like
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci and Nikola Tesla, right? Like, whether
Wow.
you can,
Good call.
like,
Good. Yeah, good ones. Yes.
and then you have the hijacking, right, of, in today's language, of uh, the word founder, right? Like founder used to mean someone who founded a town, an empire, a village, and now it means someone who forms an LLC. I would
Right.
also point out the um, like Amazon. What do you think of when someone says Amazon? Do you think of the Amazon rainforest being deforested, or do you think of is my shit gonna be here at my door within 2 days, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah, truly.
like so, then Jeff Bezos has literally like hijacked Amazon from the English language, where these are just I see um, again business um, doing damage to largely systems that were functional before, and it seems like maybe there's more dysfunction now. Maybe I mean maybe I'm wrong. What do I think? Am I getting too far
Well,
off?
I mean that's a general observation, but I agree on both points. I agree in the watered down of Founder. I think I saw you do a write up on that, so I did take a peek at that. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And yeah, AstroTurf has different facets, right? So basically, yeah, if everyone is a founder, right? No one is a founder because it's like you have to if you have no real accomplishments or product deliverables, that's not as strong a claim to that, needless to say, right? So I agree with that in principle. I also in terms of the art itself and where it's gone, it's like it doesn't. There's a lack of creativity, authenticity, and consistency in quality. Okay, so what we have when we're evaluating what industry is giving us is a lack of acknowledgement and apparent willingness to meet feedback, and that's been the downfall, in my opinion, of a lot of the that's where a lot of the problems come in. So it's an unwillingness to really examine what they're doing in terms of whether it's meeting a market demand or whether they're listening to feedback, and it's also kind of an internal direction issue where they're clearly not looking at the long term, and
If
so
you
yeah,
if
it's the
you
same issue
if you could
ultimately.
if you could wave a wand and what because thinking like an engineer, what problem would you solve? What would be the first issue that you would just address that would make a huge impact in the simplest and easiest fashion, just bridging that chasm or solving that small problem or challenge?
Um, I would, yeah, I would do what I'm doing. So, GBAMFs is, we're here as a call to action. Okay, there's in social media marketing a call to action is click here, join now, do this. No. GBAMFs is the banner. GBAMFs is the call to action. Right? Like, this is. I mean, in some people know. I read for many. I'm widely read. I read a variety of subjects in parliamentary tradition, okay, like versus Congress, same thing basically. Any governing body that way. Parliamentary tradition, there's something called a point of order. Okay, where if you feel that like a meeting isn't going in a good fashion, it's not following the schedule, it's not following the program, and generally it's you're getting off course, you could call a point of order and say, we need to make reference to the rules. Are we all on the same page here? Are we all reading the same things? Is this where it's supposed to be? Right? It's kind of like kind of an overview, right? If we're looking at an engineering sense,
almost like a
it's a
compliance
compliance audit. It's
or
an instant compliance check call. Okay, it's like, no, this red flag. It's like a ref calling a ref throws a flag. We're having a check. We're gonna go. We're doing an overview of things right now. So that's kind of what we're doing in a little bit of from a consumer standpoint, a bit of a law and regulation one, because that has to be there. Like, that wasn't our primary focus, but that's become that's been brought to the fore. We're tackling that. That was always in scope, but that's more of a present focus. And also, we're part of that is just marking out as distinctions, things that gamer culture values, cares about, we care about in general as a community, value and want to protect. And just part of that is just communicating and not having an intermediary like media or people in government or industry, which is self-interested in that, try to parse that and provide that for us. Because the more of that we allow them to do exclusively or for us, over and above us, we're subject to their interpretation and their preferences, maybe their particular interest as a business or whatever on that. And a lot of gamers, we want to play our games first of all. I mean, it's not like we want to get into rule making and regulation building and calling flags and calling people out IRL. In general, like, we gamers aren't gamers want to play. I don't think gamers want to govern. Okay, that's not a preference or an instinct. We have our own worlds, right? We go into, when you're in the zone with a game, it's all about the game. It's all about where you're at, in that headspace. And if we have to really turn around, basically, and then focus on outside stuff, it definitely breaks focus. It breaks, our game. It interrupts our flow, right? It breaks up the game for us. And you got to do that. I mean, you got to do that practically, to some level, and as schedule permits, right? You get your game time, but when it is game time, you want to be able to fully enjoy it. And the more real life, the more bad industry practices translate to bad products, and promotional practices in the media have sent people the wrong way, have misdirected us, just stumbled people up in terms of actually getting to what we want and getting a fair shake, and getting things that actually fit for both our interest and how they're marketed. And then when it comes into like the commercial practices side, like games are being withdrawn. Okay, that's what Stop Killing Games focuses on specifically. That's also the basis of our group, right? We want the games to last and your purchases to be upfront delivered when you make them, and full and complete. No takey backsies, no data mining, no telemetry to the greatest extent possible, all that. So basically, gaming is deteriorated in some ways, in many cases, especially in the high level, to the point where we can't help but focus on the in real life issues around it. Many gamers choose one or two things, right? One or two factors to focus on. Like, they don't like the creative direction, they don't like the commercially kind of extortionate sales practices, and the non-ownership. Okay, they're trying to take back bought things from us. We say, F that, we're going to tackle all of them. It's all the same. Again, these things look the same, and they are the same. And so that's actually that's crucial, because if you're just going to deal with one or two sides of it, and you don't have a common communication basis across those interests as a community, or real clarity in terms of like both consensus, right, getting everybody's concerns taken into account, and and ability to articulate it and bring it to industry's attention in a way that will catch their attention, doesn't miss their interest. Um, those are all things that could be better done, and we're here as a call to action and a call to consensus, bring together consensus, so the community can make sure that in no way, shape, or form is industry missing out on us. They're not missing out on our perspective.
Well, and it sounds like largely the gamers are just another group of the large groups of people that are exploited. And it seems like your simplification answer was communication, transparency throughout the industry would help greatly, and that's something that's literally what the think tank was created for, the movement was created for, was to serve that purpose. And my hat's off to you, because that's it's a noble cause to take on such a large endeavor, and to go through the proper channels such as legislative, because I question myself, and I've asked you before, do you feel that legislation is even a successful means of um, addressing the real systemic issue, or can we solve it by engineering? And I applaud you for taking that path, which is not the easy path. It's pushing the stone uphill, right? But at a point, there's a lot of energy behind that stone, and then I feel like you've already created a strong community, and you're a strong leader for the organization. You've put together a strong team and growing. Um,
Appreciate that, Van. A lot of
so
work to do yet.
I would agree with you that I think there's a lot of great points that we've seen a deterioration of, not just in gaming, but artistically across the board. What do you think about artists and people that open source their material before and this is kind of a broader spectrum, but it does cross into gaming, because before AI, people put websites, games, whatever it is, information out for free. And a lot of that was, in my opinion, you could consider that art, right? It was a form of digital art, and they were, as an artist, giving that to the community for free.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
how do you feel about then now that those artists may not even be alive to have a say so, and some of them are, and I'm sure they're outraged by it. Then now we have, basically LLMs, kind of web scraping, or AI, to simplify, AI pulling in a lot of massive data, and that massive data includes that free art that was provided for humans to enjoy, and yet businesses are now utilizing someone else's art to um, make money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when they put it out there for free. Like, it was never put out to make money. Someone else completely exploited that avenue.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. That's a hard subject to get into, because there's a lot that underpins that, and a lot in the future that's already, there's a tremendous amount of development, as we know, on all sides of that. I think it does kind of it strains, if not violates the spirit of the open source movement. I think to some extent, some people could see it as the logical culmination or conclusion of it. So, what I should point out, as the talk is titled here, this is kind of informal. This is just a casual talk. This is not a we're not putting out positions in this talk. But these, this represents my view on it at least. It's a deep subject, so I don't make a firm judgment on is it good or bad at this point. It's still new enough, and there's still enough coming out in development terms that it's worth evaluating from a utility standpoint and from an economic standpoint. But the most important one is the human impact standpoint, and the question is it, as a technology, is it helping further the art? As a, from a technical standpoint, is it helping to optimize and make more efficient, and most crucially underpinning it all, enhance reliability, safety, and workflow, continuity? Is it really working? Is the machine working? Okay, and LLMs are extremely disruptive in market terms and in social terms, and largely also they have a large impact in, obviously, indirectly, in technical ones. And the question is on balance, to me, the question is on balance, is that helping society move forward? Is it helping, raise us up and give us something better, which, for example, could be easy, ready access to instant generation on demand art, something that, from a human standpoint, for like getting a piece of clip art, which artists do place, rightly so, right, a certain amount of sentimental value to. Traditionally, all of that required very manual effort, right? It's very much closer to like a clothes washing analogy, or sewing, or anything of that, or milling, right? These things are extremely labor intensive traditionally. Required, entire like castes and guilds and large populations to sustain farming, famously, for almost all history. And it really doesn't know. It really doesn't know. Now, there's upsides and downsides to that. Everyone loves cheap T-shirts and food that isn't an arm and a leg. Even though that's kind of, for whatever reason, that's becoming more of an issue these days. And like, that's it. It's the telos. Is where does it go? How is it helping everybody? How isn't it? What are the upsides and it's a pro and con, right? And AI, to me, does pose some distinct advantages. The on-demand, simple artwork, that's one of them. Independence of creators, for either creative creators in the more traditional artistic sense, if they need a technical, and this impacts more our side, engineering and technical work. If they need a simple solution for something, can they kind of access it without undue effort in trying to find the information? Like, for example, knowing the forum to go to online where that particular subject is the concentration, which traditionally was something better solved by search engines. And not to go too deep in the in out in the field on this, but
it,
the
it
concentrate.
there's
Oh,
definitely an overlap in the uh, creative artistic deterioration in pop culture with technology. I feel there's an underlying connection there.
yeah,
It's you would it's interesting because it seems like it would be the opposite. As technology improves, then art would improve. But as technology's improved, it almost seems that we've seen a deterioration of some creative artistry. Like
yeah.
you said, the book is still out. It's artificial intelligence, LLMs, GPTs, whatever you want to call them, is largely a very new um, tech technology. Personally, I find a lot of the um, like, let's talk about CGI. Is
Sure.
CGI making gaming better, or is it making gaming worse?
So
It's like, did
to be
did
clear,
CGI make
I think you're speaking of AI in-game development. versus CGI and animation, which was kind of the big thing in the early 2000s, how that took over from 2D. Are you referring to both of
Yes,
those or
yeah,
one or the other?
yeah, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, gee, I mean, before even getting into gaming, I'm a diehard 2D animation fan. I love traditional Disney. I love anime. Um, Hand drawn art to me has always shown more character and been it's what inspired me to fall in love with the art form. All of it's visual, all of it's animated per se, but that's a genre or category consideration. In terms of how it's made, I always prefer seeing 2D hand drawn over even the most credible. This is more of a personal taste thing. Even the most credible AI generated CGI, we could say, it's kind of an overlap, but AI, it could be for anything, and it all falls under the umbrella of CGI when it refers to animation.
Okay.
S-
I think that's
So
fair.
so yeah, to me it's as amazing as the stuff we see now is, because you might have heard the like the AI clip from a couple years ago. I think it was like supposed to be Kanye, or it was another famous artist who they made his voice into an AI clip, and it didn't sound like him at all. It was completely uncanny. It was ridiculous. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, everybody rolled their eyes and like this technology is never going to go anywhere. Nobody bought it." You can totally tell it's not him. It's not even close. And now AI voice replication is it's incredibly good. I mean, realistically, it really is. It's gotten beyond uncanny to the point where it's almost its own thing.
When you say uncanny, would you say almost undistinguishable to most humans?
Right, right. Right. That would be a fair, yeah, indistinguishable, from human voice quality in almost every sense. It's, you have to even for a skilled, a trained ear, it takes a little effort, and you may not be able to tell realistically with something that's well produced, especially if it's sampled correctly and adapted. You wouldn't be able to tell. You wouldn't be able to tell, and that raises all kinds of issues and questions that are downline, from just the creative and consumer standpoint directly, but more to creators and human interest in preserving art and integrity of performance. So it's like it really does touch on deeper issues. But just from a taste standpoint and a preference standpoint, um, traditional animation is where it's at for me and so many other people. Like, I feel like when CGI came in, which was of course advertised itself as the new big thing, and same hype train, same cycle, the media did the full court press, and everybody is kind of at the major corporate level moved over to that, and the ones that didn't had huge economic disincentives, downsides to trying to maintain the large systems that they had. And so by and by, almost everyone went to that as a form of animating. And a lot of culture, artistic culture, creative culture, was kind of um, either shoved out of the way or gradually, retired their shoot out of the way by like the introduction of this technology. Now, I'm familiar with the whole. You're familiar? Are you familiar with the original, with the origin of the term sabotage, sabotage, and the origin of the Luddite movement? Because this is something, it's a canard that's consistently brought out against people that aren't fanboys of AI. Just as example,
No,
you ever heard of that
no.
stuff?
Tell, tell,
So
me-
late
tell me
middle
more.
middle to late industrial revolution, the in Holland, there were makers of I believe they call them clogs, right? Or clods or clogs, but they're the
The
wooden
wooden
shoes.
shoe.
Yes, yes. So that stuff was all handmade, and they introduced machinery I think it was technically in the weavers, among the weavers, that this really started, because the shoe manufacturer came a little later. That was more us, right? But the what wound up happening is in some of the machines they were using to simplify the process. There's a variety of different things, but they the workers strongly objected to the great streamlining of this, in some cases, because there is a huge culture of skilled labor and knowledge that was displaced, in the process, which again had pros and cons. I'm not staking out some very stark position on it, but I am saying the history was is there where those clogs or clods, that they were would wind up thrown in the machines, and so when when it was found, the sewing machines or other machines that they were using would be found to be out of operation, you would often find that there was a sabot in them, okay, or a clog, right? And so this is where the term came from.
Sabotage.
Right, right. And so so that's your work stop. This is the found the work stoppage right here. Who's responsible for this? So that was where the epitome of the trope of like being a Luddite is you want to sabotage the wheels of progress from going forward because you don't agree with exactly what we would like to mandate everyone from the worker to the consumer to the labor guilds in between and the culture at large, what we want for them. And at some point, I mean, whether anywhere along the way you object, or you like it and you want that, if you're not willing to look at the long view of history and question what's the net and what are the real effects, regardless of preferences and practices, you're probably shortchanging yourself. You might just be going the wrong direction, because that perspective is missing, lost, or inadequately explored. And so, yeah, not going to
What's
endorse the
more, what's more sustainable? A clog that what was the life of a clog, right? That's a hand carved piece of wood that maybe they developed machinery to make hand tools that made it
right,
more efficient to do before it was commoditized and manufactured in a facility, which then became modern day shoemaking.
right,
Which I don't know how you feel about shoes, but generally it seems like they last about a year, and then you've got to buy another pair. You've got to
right.
buy another pair these
Well,
days, even if you're buying decent shoes.
right,
Whereas a clog made out of wood,
right.
which I would say, well, maybe that process, maybe we should review that process because
Yeah.
maybe that was a completely sustainable process. The clog, the wooden shoe, the handcrafted artistry that is, yes, probably largely lost, except for people now who want handmade clogs,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly wasn't what it was at the um, precipice in history where that was it, right? Like that was what you had for footwear. Kind of, I'm assuming at that point in time in history. And you made a point earlier about the artistry, right?
Mm-hmm.
About digital art versus hand drawn art. And I would say, like, consider a painting
Mm-hmm.
or even a drawing. Consider that every line, every stroke, when that person originally created that, put that brush to canvas, put that paper, that pen to paper, or that pencil to paper. Um, there's, it's like a document in time marking this artistic creativity and this art by this individual at this time, which is something that I don't know that we can reproduce with digital art that can be immediately generated. There's a history to the clog. There's a history to the probably there's a history to the pencil, to paper, to it's so interesting the parallels between gaming and trying to take the movement into a sustainable direction when it maybe has no direction
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
direction.
Potentially. Potentially that. Potentially that. And that's the most worrying facet. I mean, unlike something purely functional, I wouldn't say purely functional. I'm underrating it, right? I'm a technical guy. I'm not a fashionista. I mean, I try and wear good clothes and make it look good, but it's not my area. I mean, it's just it's not my main focus. So, um, I've gotten better about it, I guess. But I mean, it's not my main thing, and
What do you mean? What do you mean for normies? What do you mean you're not a fashionista? It sounds like to me what you're saying is you prefer that it work. You don't care what it looks like. It's more you're on the more functionality. It needs to do what it's supposed to do, or I want it to
yeah,
do. I'm not. I
yeah,
don't care about the work.
it's fair to say, Van. Like, um, my principal, just one sec. Uh, my principal thing is like I'm pretty practical minded. I don't I look at utility first. Technical background and kind of a scientific bent. I'm like, what are the details? And what is the outcome? What's the plan? What's the outcome? All that. For clothes, I just as one example, I like functional clothing, right? So
Okay.
a tactical vest, a utility belt, cargo, pants or whatever. That all kind of really works for me, right? Now I don't always wear all that, but I'm gonna look to that first if I'm looking for a solution in and around couture, right? That's obvious, right? Um, and that's that's also how I probably look at games too and stuff, right? Like I look at the functional chops of the game. Doom, famously one of the most optimized games of all time. I mean, it was just is a masterpiece of of code engineering, from several different standpoints, and that's inspiring, right? Like it's gone on to be ported to everything from thermostats to wristwatches to medical devices to, I mean, we're talking everything. And that's because it is such an outstanding singular um, piece of code work, that it transcends its original medium. Like that actually is, it speaks to a, oh no, I just lost my hero here. I should have been paying a little closer attention to the battle.
That's
That
the
that's
art
a
of
total loss.
that is
That's
the
bad.
art of code.
Right.
What you're
I'm
describing
I'm gonna
is
I'm
the
gonna rewind because I messed that up. Please, yeah, it is. Take it away, man. I'm sorry, man. I auto played the battle by mistake.
no, I feel like, you're describing code as art, which it very much can be. Before I ever wrote a line of code, which I never thought that I would ever do, I never thought I would build my own Bitcoin miner. All these um, things are, while they're not necessarily analog, they're still an art. They're whether you're programming a Internet of Things controller. You mentioned running Doom on a thermostat.
You
I
can.
have ESP32 printed control boards, which are my printed control board of choice. A printed control board is just a very small computer, and you can actually run Doom on a one of my ESP32 CYDs, like a little $20 microcontroller with the display. So, and it's one of the better games graphically that cheap minimal kind of. It's a little beautiful device, right? You know, it has its limitations, but it's like one of the more powerful games that you can play, or cooler games, for lack of a better term, that
Mm-hmm.
you can play on the ESP32 very easily and flash the firmware onto the PCB, and before you know it, you're playing Doom with the stylus. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
yes, Doom is a masterpiece. Doom is a work of art. Some code is a work of art. I feel like when you start to put love into crafting something, when you care, then you know, then it can very easily like become art. Hey, I mean, building a home is art. Carpentry is art. Um, anything can be an art. Throwing knives, playing games. Um, the wouldn't you say thinking strategically, like in a game of chess, there's a certain artistry to playing a game where there's strategy involved, or or is there not?
Definitely, definitely. Oof, this is a tough battle here. I might have not been able to
Yeah.
win this one. Yeah, there is, and there's, that's where a certain amount of deliberate human effort and choices in design, all of that matters. That's there's a lot of concern in the creative community and gaming and beyond that that it's being lost is that deliberate human design, and that the choices and the culture that reflects all the choices over time, the respective contributions and the history of the thing is kind of being sapped by too much automation. Okay, too much automation. Yeah, that was a tough battle. Um, okay, so yeah, it's like that's that's probably more core. It's upstream of what we deal with as consumers, strictly speaking. Even though it's we're all recipients and participants to the extent we study, critique, invest ourselves in it in time terms. Just a certain amount of time spent is its own study, whether it's deliberate or not, right? Whether it's intended that way, and so you get to know a thing by immersing yourself in it, and that's worth paying attention to. It's worth reaching over and above the standard gamer interest to really look at how the sausage is made, right? How is this all put together, and not just appreciated in terms of choice and preference, which we actively express, or as recipients of particular type of art, if we're more casual consumers of it, but also because there's so much of it available now, right? Gaming has a tremendous amount of output per se, and because of the communications difficulties, let us say, in the media with respect to discernment and promotion of these works of art, it's really incumbent on us to make our own approach, make our own inroads to appreciating this beyond just at the strictly personal level, right? Even though there's a lot of influencers and creators that do share that, and that's very big right now. That's very big. So I mean, I want to acknowledge that this is on a dozen years going on YouTube and stuff. Guys like Lazy Game Reviews, LGR, and famously Angry Video Game Nerd. He is the OG of OGs, right? He goes by Cinemassacre now, moved more into general pop culture and film. But like, that's not new, and it's not. I mean, it's new. It is new in a sense, but it's not new to us in the gaming community. It's probably the staple right now. But what we find is a tremendous amount of institutional resistance even resentment, um, in the media and academia and the traditional cultural bailiwicks, right? They're
Well,
the
and
museum level. Let's put it this way: they haven't fully embraced video games as an integral art form, with exception of like the Strong Museum of Play or the Computerspiel Museum in Berlin, and a variety of other ones. Like we just the institutional respectability is still it's pretty hard earned. It's pretty hard to earn and hard coming, and without those guardians of culture, right? Without that backstop, industry can kind of run amok and you know um, uh, wash over in media terms a lot of the day-to-day cultural ideas, thinking, and preferences of gamers with their own message, spray in media terms, and that loses like tremendous amounts of capturing the moment of gamer sentiment, gamer tradition. Frankly, uh, that's something that's the moment in with many moments with respect to that, but the moment is almost being lost. It's on the precipice of that, in part imperiled even more so by AI, because like the traditional craftsmanship and crafting of games is now itself being super automated potentially and increasingly, and when you have the consumer market so dominated by a media that's not reflective of our interest and influences, and on the production side it's moving to a more consolidated and it is true it empowers individual artists on the back end. It does, like individual artists and creators. It does have there is an option for that, but in terms of the common culture of creatives and an organized commercial culture of that, that's a big loss. I mean, that's a huge culture shift that we're not really prepared for, and gamers aren't fully. I mean, their opinions are divided in terms of those that are like AI hype beasts. Okay, that really they're boosters for it, and those who are more skeptical. But I think the big picture is very few people are approaching or appreciate the big picture on this, and it's hard to get your arms around in any case.
well, it seems like automation and largely the um, extraction business model is disconnected from the gaming community, and therefore they're putting out um, content or products that are not really art and lean more towards it's just a product, and people don't really from an artistic standpoint, you're not drawn to something that doesn't have evoke emotion or doesn't care or doesn't um
Doesn't compel interest.
have, have maintain your interest if it isn't fun,
Yeah,
right? Just for
yeah. That's what's been missing. Frankly, that's the biggest single underlying complaint. These games aren't fun. And I mean, we've had industry side people that have outright, famously Neil Druckmann, who's like, um, we don't use the word fun. Where do you get off saying something like that? Like you're just disconnecting, you're completely disconnecting the core drive of what gaming is
then
about.
what is the point of the game? Then what are you
The
making
quarterly
games
earnings apparently. Quarterly earnings apparently they what's fun for investors, I suppose, because what's the point otherwise? I mean, are they just creating for themselves or for not for no one? Because that seems to be like that's a common criticism as well. Like nobody particularly was interested in a number of these AAA titles, like Dragon Age Veilguard was not much. There's a couple others that just there's standout bad they stand
um
they're standout bad examples. They don't actually serve any market or anyone's interest. They're just kind of art for the sake of producing a product, and it looks like production line assembled. It looks very generic. The characters look very generic. The storylines are kind of dismal. That's not the only example. There's a couple others, but that's it's kind of that's the common theme, and you put that together with these attitudes that are like gamer opinions don't matter. Gamers are bad people that have been stoked in the media, and what you get is like we're just going to make this for the sake of it in order for the hope that it will investors will be happy. I mean, that's what seems to be the if you read the tea leaves, it seems to be the MO, and that sucks. I mean, that just sucks. That doesn't suit anybody's interest. Oftentimes these have been pretty big flops. Like the industry is in a major slump right now because these are flops. And it can all be traced back to like ignoring what gamers actually want, what we're interested in, and not respecting the culture, not respecting the legacy of the franchises, things like that. And we discussed Indiana Jones a couple times ago when we talked. Those haven't all been winners. Like some of those just went so off course, and yeah, I feel like that's been true for gaming even more so. Van, you still with me here? Van, you still on? Let me just check our link here. I think I might have lost Van. Let's see. Okay, it looks like we lost Van for a sec. Gonna wait for him to come back on here. All right, so I haven't been playing too hard on this, but yeah, this is kind of a tough game, especially if you're not fully focusing on it. Let me fix the worker ratio here. So Master Magic is a strategy 4X, and this is the remake of it. Which it's pretty well received. It's a game that goes way back. It's like one of the founders of the genre. So it's one of my favorite strategy games, and the remake comes really close in terms of reproducing playstyle and all that. Um, doesn't do everything that the original game did, but that game also has been in effect for development almost 40 years. um, because if you go back, the inspiration is board games, and this is like the I don't know third or fourth generation, if you want to say, of like this specific brew. Even if the genre is kind of expanded massively, like like Civ games are very big. This is one of the early influences on that genre and the whole rest of it. Um, so it's something that's worth looking at if you've never played the game before. It's definitely one to play. Let me just check in with Van here because I think it dropped here. Huh. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get him back. Uh, let me let me just pause this really quick, and I will be back on. I'm gonna make a call. Okay, so it looks like we may have lost Van for a bit here. Um, Let me see here. Okay, so yeah, there's a little bit of a weather issue for Van. So he's going to resume if he can. I'm just gonna keep playing here for a bit and see if I can't bring up my game a little bit for Master of Magic. Yeah, it's kind of hard to half play a strategy game. So I do this because I love these games so much. But they do require certain focus to really do well at. Yeah, it kind of sucks here. We have almost 1,000 followers on this channel, and really it's harder to get more than a couple people sometimes. So I don't think we're too well promoted on the algo. Um, maybe the content is boring or something, but I don't think so. I think this is important stuff. Um, so yeah, if the discussion isn't the biggest draw, I do think that it definitely matters that this gets out there. So it's important regardless. Um, I'm gonna just be doing some more playthrough streams, just playing on my own channel, and I think that'll be a little bit better as far as watchability rather than issue discussion. Although issue discussion is core too. So all right, so it does look like Van's probably not going to be joining us back here. I might wind up starting a new game um, on um, on my channel in a bit, just because we want it to be discussion to be a little part of this video of this stream. So thank you for those of you tuning in, and if you're watching this later, appreciate you. We're here for gamer culture advocacy and and gamers overall. We want to make sure that the media and the industry doesn't run away with the wrong impression of what our real interests are, what our culture is about. And that's something that definitely over the last number of years has, the gap has widened there. So, and the creativity, there's a lot of great creative work. No one's saying that there isn't creativity or that it's all gone. On the contrary, it could be bigger than ever. But at the big like AAA level, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of people that are out of work that maybe shouldn't be, if the right direction is put in place there, and if it really met us where we are as gamers. So that's kind of the big message here, the big takeaway. Um, just step up as gamers. We have a group here that's got some really great people, really great focus, and there's a lot that we can do to impress industry to meet us where we are and reflect the authenticity and the true interests and values of gamer culture, as opposed to maybe just whatever kind of more immediate focus, immediate profits or immediate kind of whatever's popular in the industry, influencing them to the exclusion of what gamers want. So yeah, that's where it's at. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to discuss it. Van is part of our group. Great guy. Helped with the our. We actually put out a message that is in support of SKGs for the legislation in California, for the Assembly Bill. I believe it's 1921. And although that measure did fail, so that wasn't a success there to get that through committee, which is a very hard process, uh, allowing games to continue after their immediate shelf life. Right, their immediate product life is no longer supported by the company. Basically, Stop Killing Games said they should still be playable, and that was the proposal, and it's one we supported. Very good measure. That did not make it through committee, but that fight is not over yet, and we have our own measures and proposals that we're working on. You can see some on the site, gbamfs.org, gbamfs. But I think for tonight, I'm probably going to end the stream here because it's kind of a discussion stream, and we'll do some gaming stuff probably on my own channel. So thank you for tuning in, and it's been a pleasure. Jdawg out. See you.